live in modern times, you know, we often forget that everything's gone on before, don't we? We often think, really? Well, no, it's only matters about the time that we're in. Are you a bit like that? You know what I mean by that? You think we were the first people to buy hit records, we were the first people to wear fashion. And I love it now as I've got a little, shall we say, more vintage. You wander around places and you see really young people and they look at you as if, what are you now? And you think we've all been young once, right? Everything's gone on. The bottom line is, you know, you always think you're inventing the wheel, don't you? You know what I'm talking about. But what's fascinating is this. You see, way back in 1935, literally on the 6th of May, well, there was the Silver Jubilee celebrations of none other than King George. And what was fascinating about this, just like our very own King Charles over a year and a bit ago now, they were looking for some stardust to try and make this event really sparkle. Because let's not forget, in the 1930s, you know, particularly in that era, things were still very much deferential. It was all about royal protocol. But of course, King George understood the power of the brand new moving image medium. You know, radio was king. He was allowed now to do the speeches on radio. And more importantly, he saw that, well, his subjects, his people, were queuing up every week to go along to their famous regals and Gaumont and palaces to see all of their favourite movie stars. And he had one in mind that he thought would be the perfect sort of attachment to his Silver Jubilee celebrations. However, it wasn't meant to be. But why? As ever, let me explain. Morning, how are you? You all right? Thank you so much. We'll have a quick wave. Yes, it's raining here in London right now. So that's why it's all looking very lush, isn't it? Yeah, can you see it all? Just lovely, isn't it? So dark green. I know the gardeners of this world love it because they say, oh, the garden needs watering, that sort of stuff. Really? I just want some sun, you know, because you think this is July. Where is everything going? I'm fed up now, aren't you? But have you still got your bikini now? You haven't got it out yet. I can see. Yes, well, this is a problem, isn't it? You'll have to save it for next year or maybe just go and swim somewhere. Terrible situation though, isn't it? Wherever we are. Back as ever though to your royal story. I just find these sort of stories fascinating. And this was told to me by the Hollywood superstar that was a good friend of mine, the late and brilliant Tony Curtis, otherwise known as Bernie Schwartz. You see, Tony had been friends with all the major Hollywood stars of an era. And he, of course, came to fame, and he was a very young man, good-looking guy, but, you know, very young man, signed to Universal. So he was paired with all sorts of wonderful people throughout of his career, whether it be Rita Hayworth, Yvonne De Carlo, Humphrey Bogart, Frank Sinatra. He met them all and worked with them all and knew all their stories. Now, later on in life, he appeared in a movie opposite the brilliant Hollywood legend that was Mae West. And Mae West was incredibly popular. In fact, her possible biggest era would have been the 1930s, all thanks to movies like She's Done Him Wrong and stuff like that. The famous line, of course, come up and see me sometime. You remember that, yeah? Well, what was fabulous was to note that according to Tony, and I've had this verified, that actually King George wanted Mae West to attend his Silver Jubilee celebrations. He thought it would be great if she could be a part of the pageant of one of the historical figures, maybe Lady Di. King George really wanted Mae West, of course, to appear in his pageant and perhaps as one of the historical figures of English history, perhaps Lady Godiva or something like that. Apparently Mae was up for it. Now, she'd never met the king or anything like that, but of course she knew as the biggest star in the planet, the power of what this could be. Imagine being at a royal event in the middle of the 1930s, the movie cameras there, this would have celebrated the whole thing. And apparently it was very keen and an invitation was sent out. But things started to unravel and go very badly wrong because, of course, apparently courtiers inside the palace walls said, no, this is very distasteful. She's the wrong sort of person that we should have on the pageant. But the king apparently said, no, this will be, make a great sort of scene and go with a bang. Something of that level, you know, he knew the power of publicity. Sadly, though, apparently, without his knowledge, the invitation was rescinded. And apparently what was passed on to His Majesty the King was the fact that Mae was now unavailable due to filming. Many years later, Tony Curtis told me that he found out that Mae found out this was the case. She just didn't know why communication had stopped. And of course, in those days, you remember, no internet, limited Atlantic sort of telephone stuff. She couldn't find out the reasons why. But sadly, she never made it as part of the royal procession. And when you think about it, May and the royal family are a strange combination. And when you also think about it, other blonde sex symbols like Jane Mansfield and Marilyn Monroe did get to meet senior royals. And of course, it did their career a power of good. I don't know about you, but I think that having missed Mae West at the Silver Jubilee celebrations, sadly a year before his death, King George really did lose out. But more importantly, how sad for Mae West too. As ever, I'd love to know what you think to this particular story in the comments below. Neil Shawn in the very heart of London.